I take notes if I'm not engaged.
Yeah. How far you're something clever?
I was going to say, so if I'm preaching and you're taking notes, I can pretty much say what I'm doing.
Because I have to force myself.
Steal the sermon,
Yeah, figure something clever on it. Yeah, I like that. Very profound. Not glad.
I read this.
You're going to be late.
Oh, I think glasses over here.
Oh, that's me. I always lay them somewhere. I always.
You're like me.
Yeah, I just lay them down.
I
Thank
sleep with
you.
mine.
Oh, do you really?
Your card, who spoke, date,
I sleep
sermon.
with the morning.
That's pretty good.
I'll wake up in the morning.
Okay.
There's a Bible up there. I don't have a Bible either.
Yes, it's right.
So mine.
All right, everybody's got the sheet of paper. We all know what to do with it by now. Paul, are we anyone in particular, a regular Sunday morning? Are we a class of preachers?
Whatever God tells it to be.
Okay. All right. What do you intend?
Could be anything. Preaching, teaching, it doesn't matter.
What is it directed to the Sunday morning group?
I would say like a Sunday night maybe.
Okay. Sunday night. All right. We're getting ready to go here, and Jim is going to pray for Paul, please.
God, we love you and put you first of all. Lord, I just ask that we're as a class, but we're here to help each other, but we're also here to hear God's word. And through the learning and through the helping of each other, I just ask that each Spirit just allows us to hear the truth that you intend for us to hear tonight. Lord, I ask that you just look over Paul as he gives you a message and he's an instrument of you. On his nerves.
Hey, whenever you're ready, Paul.
Alright. During my time of learning religion and philosophy, I've always been admired how teachers can inspire you to do great things in life. One of my philosophy teachers up in Nyack, he's always started out with, our minds tend to go in different directions, but Jesus says come back. And what he's talking about is when we think of the concept of silent prayer, is basically what he's talking about, is when you're quiet and everybody else is quiet, nobody's praying, and you have that time of reverence, and you allow Jesus to speak to you. And when that happens, our minds tend to go in different directions. So what Jesus always says is just to come back. And when we're in that zone with him, we are more focused. We don't see that very much at our times. And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking of this time of learning dualism between reality and this other reality. And what I was thinking about was this movie Matrix, because within the story of Matrix is this dualism between one reality and then another reality. And it's a story of Neo. Those two don't know anything about it, is how he is just a regular person like in our reality who's searching for truth. And one night he just happens to meet Morpheus. When he meets Morpheus, he decides to make the choice to go down the rabbit hole to this other perception. And when he gets unplugged, he goes into another dimension, which is another reality. And when he goes there, he finds out this whole different theology, and everything that his life was based on was another perception, that which was just created for program purposes. And then he realizes that he hears this prophecy that the chosen one will come and save the world. Well, doesn't make the short anything. He begins to doubt himself several times throughout the movie. But what was really, really interesting is when he was bringing about this key maker in part 2, and there's this whole entire scenes of action and everything else, but there's one specific area where him, Morpheus, and Neo are in this one room, like a computer room, and he gives Neo the key, and he opens the door, and from there he goes into an alternate reality and he speaks to the architect. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take part of the Neo story and talking about right here, and my title is The Hidden Meanings, and it's coming from Matthew 16, chapter 16, verses 13 to 20. And basically what I'm doing is I'm literally going to be talking about these two verses and how it applies to everything that my presentation is going to be based on. Basically what it is people can take these two verses and not see a different dimension, but yet there's a different dimensions that is caused by these two verses. And one of my journeys that I'll take you guys through is how these journeys begin, but then there's one area that I know that a lot of people are not going to truly understand, so I'll just briefly touch into. Then I'm going to go right into the good news aspect. So when you guys are thinking about all this, I want you to think of, go up 1 or 2. Yeah. I want you to think of this. And what I want to do is I want you guys to kind of think in your minds that you're going to say, Paul, come back to Jesus. And I will. Go down 2. And I'll go right back into here, and you guys will see a different dimension that I was talking about. Go down. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is who is the Apostle Peter? I'm sure anybody would say that, we pretty much understand where Peter was coming from. He was a fisherman, a follower of Jesus. He denied Jesus 3 times. He was witness of Jesus' death. He was the first preacher in the book of Acts. He was the author of epistles. He took Mark under the gospel, under his privileges. He was in prison. And then he goes into his death. And which is interesting is, when you look at that, and you compare it to Neo, in some cases there was a slight similarities, but I'm not going to get into all the comparing and everything else. I just want to keep it basic. But what I'm doing is I want to show you guys something that's interesting about Peter as I relate to another section. Now I'm going to go on my second one. Now the thing is from these 2 verses, can anybody create a faith out of these 2 verses? And the answer is yes. And unfortunately, it has happened. One of the problems is when I was in my Teen Challenge days, I came across Walter Martin. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about it, he's an author, lecturer, great teacher in the occults, and if you listen to his wisdom and teachings, he'll just blow your mind because it's simple and he addresses the issues. And as he was talking about it, there was a program that I came across in one of his videos, and it's was Peter the first pope, which brings the argument back to those 2 verses I was talking about. Now, from this program, which anybody can look at on YouTube, was pretty much discussing about how Reverend Walter Martin's view of it versus the Catholic view, when they take those 2 verses and they really began to understand it, because from the Catholic's point of view, Peter in theology thinks Peter's the first pope. They established the first Catholic Church and everything from these two verses. And this is what they were discussing. And Reverend Martin is like saying, no, that's absolutely wrong. You can't go by that. And as part of the Second Reformation's view is you can't go by that, pretty much. So what does this all mean? Well, when we go back to Christianity, there's another hidden message that's in this. And yet, I want to take the time and I want you guys to say, I want you to kind of focus back on Jesus, which I will. Because when we really think about it, when we think of Neo's death, even though the prophecy was about him saving the world, humanity, which is a cross-reference to Jesus, but from a non-Christian point of view, where he literally sacrifices himself for humanity. And humanity later on, and this is where, if Matrix 4 or if Matrix 3 had an extra 20 minutes, and let's say if they shown like a church of Neo, in my thinking, that would be kind of correct for that part of aspect. Now, you bring that to Christianity, and you get, this image. And to me, it doesn't agree, I don't agree with it, only because it's a different type of thing. You can't build a church over a man's theology. And unfortunately, that's what they did, but I don't want to get into all the Catholic perspectives and stuff, because I want to keep it general. But instead, we build a church over Jesus' death, which is the resurrection and everything else that comes along with it. Now this is the part where I told you it's going to get a little bumpy, where, which is, to bear with me, I'll present a good news after this. Now the question is, can a doctrine be created out of these two verses? Unfortunately, when I was studying the alternative religions, Christianity, the other religions in the world, it's interesting that a lot of it can be based off of these two verses, because, for one, it essentially is saying man has the authority over whatever happens here on earth as it is in heaven. So if one says, if you stop drinking water, what is everybody else going to do? They're going to stop drinking water. That's where part of it comes from. But to me, it's in the occult aspect, which I'm sure a lot of you don't really know anything about it. This is where I'm going to touch it briefly. Just really briefly. Within this context, we can see another perspective. This is literally a doctrine that if you didn't have the knowledge of it, you would do this. Somewhere about there. And what it is it's somewhere like that. It's called As Above and As Below doctrine. Texas Mars, which is a very controversial figure, he kind of inspired me to go in different aspects, but I always come back to Jesus. I don't stay too far in certain areas, but one of the things he says is that the student of the occult instantly recognizes the model as above and as below. This is the ancient occult tradition taught by the days of the Egyptian god Dionysus. Premise brings the doctrine that all are one, there is no God outside of us, and that's the heaven and earth and are now and have always been a unity, and that we ourselves are collectively God. The earth is a God, and the stars, nature is God, all is one, all is one. So basically what I'm saying is, if you eliminate Jesus, pretty much, if everything is a God, then everything is pretty much an error-based. You can really think about it, because what you're doing is you're eliminating Jesus in creation and everything, which is against any Christian belief. That's why I wanted to kind of stick with it. And then, if you'd like to research more, you can go into that. So, what does the symbols actually mean? Well, the thing is on that image, you see an image of Jesus pointing one finger up and one finger down. There's a lot of people that would speculate that itself is a false doctrine. And yet, there's been a lot of artists throughout the history that has utilized that theology. Another one that's real famous is the Freemasons, because a lot of what they do is, this is the above, and that's the above below, in that aspect. And what he did is the same thing with Morpheus, who's showing one finger up, one finger down. What's his name? Kanye West, who does the same thing, putting the Pope, putting the Satanic. I just want to brush real roughly with it. But these are the things that are out there because everything is taken out of context. Now we're going to bring it back to Jesus. What are the keys in it? In other words, what does this all mean? Well, from my understanding, when we think about Christianity, okay, to make the argument, we got to think of the basic fundamentals. What Christianity is. Forget about traditions and everything, the whole denominations. And the way I look at it is we have to have a personal relationship with our Savior, not any other Jesus that's out there. Even though in the dual complex, I'm sure there's a lot of Christians that are not aware of the other Jesus that's out there. The God of the John of God. And there's other ones that's out there. There's false Jesuses. And then we need to have our personal relationship with the one true Jesus. The second one, which is the ABCs of Christianity, is to admit. We need to admit that we are a Christian, that we are a follower of one true faith. And then we need to believe that He is the resurrection. He needs everything. Confess that we have to confess that we are Christians. It's surprising that a lot of Christians out there will not say that they're Christians. And it's kind of strange. And then the last one, the Bible. Any true Christian would have to say that they believe just about everything that's in the Bible as an inspiration from God directly. Not these other Bibles or these other books. I think a week ago, I actually had a debate with individuals that were talking about the book of Enoch. Why is it not in the Bible and it's in these other things? And I'm trying to tell them that the book of Enoch is false. And yet, to them, they thought it was true. And I'm saying to myself, can God come down and give them a holy slap? Because it was based on all error, and these people think it's believing. And I'm going to say, you know what, I'm done with this whole debate. But there's people out there who believe it. So in the end, what do we think about this? Even the hidden messages. I just gave you some ideas of what all of this contest. I have not stepped out of these box that I created. I stepped within. I gave you some guys an indication that when we kind of have like a reference point, even though we are focused on God and we kind of go into another direction for that time, we kind of come back, and that's what I've been trying to do. I didn't go anywhere else. And then my question is really a question that a lot of people should really think about for a long while. And that is, if a preacher told his or her people not to walk or sit for the rest of their lives, would people do it? And if they did, when they go into heaven, would they walk again? Basically what that means is, let's say if you're a Christian or not a Christian, if you forgot the idea of walking in our faith, and you go into heaven, and you forget to walk, what's going to happen? Are you going to lose everything? It's something that a lot of people should consider, that we should just follow our ways as Christians, just to follow one true Jesus and everything that comes along with it. But at the same time, understanding what is going on outside, be it always referring back to the one true Jesus. I can remember when I was in Teen Challenge, I've heard, I don't know how many salvation messages out there by all these preachers. And to me, it just got to be so boring. But when I heard a different view of salvation, when you look at a false doctrine and you come back, it kind of says, you know what, thank God I have the one true faith. And that's what I'm trying to illustrate to you guys. Thank you.